Speak if ye be not like the rest, hawk mad. Where can I get me harborage for the night? And arms, arms, arms to fight my enemies. Speak. Whereat the armourer, turning all amazed and seeing one so gay in purple silks, came forward with the helmet yet in hand and answered, Pardon me, O stranger knight, we hold a tourney here tomorrow morn, and there is scantly time for half the work. Arms, truth, I know not. All are wanted here. Harborage? Truth, good truth, I know not safe. It may be at Earl Enid's o'er the bridge yonder. He spoke and fell to work again. Then rode Geraint, a little spleenful yet, across the bridge that spanned the dry ravine. There musing sat the hoary-headed earl, his dress a suit of frayed magnificence, once fit for feasts of ceremony, and said, Whither, fair son? To whom Geraint replied, O friend, I seek a harborage for the night. Then Enid enter therefore and partake the slender entertainment of a house once rich, now poor, but ever open-doored. Thanks, venerable friend, replied Geraint. So that ye do not serve me sparrow-hawks for supper, I will enter, I will eat, with all the passion of a 12 hours fast. Then sighed and smiled the hoary-headed earl and answered, Graver cause than yours is mine to curse this hedgerow thief, the sparrow-hawk. But go in, for save yourself desire it, we will not touch upon him even in jest. Then rode Geraint into the castle court, his charger trampling many a prickly star of sprouted thistle on the broken stones. He looked and saw that all was ruinous. Here stood a shattered archway plumed with fern, and there had fallen a great part of a tower, whole like a crag that tumbles from the cliff, and like a crag was gay with wilding flowers. And high above a piece of turret stair, worn by the feet that now were silent, wound bare to the sun and monstrous ivy stems, clasped the grey walls with hairy, fibred arms, and sucked the joining of the stones, and looked a knot beneath of snakes aloft a grove. And while he waited in the castle court, the voice of Enid, Enid's daughter, rang clear through the open casement of the hall, singing, and as the sweet voice of a bird heard by the lander in a lonely isle, moves him to think what kind of bird it is that sings so clearly, and make conjecture of the plumage and the form. So the sweet voice of Enid moved Geraint, and made him like a man abroad at morn, when first the liquid note, beloved of men, comes flying over many a windy wave to Britain, and in April suddenly breaks from a coppice gemmed with green and red, and he suspends his converse with a friend, or it may be the labour of his lands. To think or say, there is the nightingale. So fared it with Geraint, who thought and said, Here, by God's grace, is the one voice for me. It chanced the song that Enid sang was one of fortune and her wheel. Turn, fortune, turn thy wheel. And lower the proud. Turn thy wild wheel through sunshine, storm and cloud. Thy wheel and thee we neither love nor hate. Turn, fortune, turn thy wheel with smile or frown. With that wild wheel we go not up or down. Our hoard is little, but our hearts are great. Smile and we smile, the lords of many lands. Frown and we smile, the lords of our own hands. For man is man and master of his fate. Turn, turn thy wheel above the staring crowd. Thy wheel and thou are shadows in the cloud. Thy wheel and thee we neither love nor hate. Hark, by the bird's song ye may learn the nest. Said Enid, enter quickly, entering then right o'er a mount of newly fallen stones. The dusky raftered many cobwebbed hall he found an ancient dame in dim brocade, and near her like a blossom vermeil white that lightly breaks a faded flower sheath moved the fair Enid, all in faded silk, her daughter. In a moment, thought Geraint, here by God's rood is the one made for me. But none spake word except the hoary earl. Enid, the good knight's horse stands in the court. Take him to stall and give him corn, and then go to the town and buy us flesh and wine, and we will make as merry as we may. Our hoard is little, but our hearts are great. He spake the prince as Enid passed him, fain to follow, strode astride, but Enid caught his purple scarf and held and said, Forbear, rest the good house low ruined, O my son. Endures not that her guest should serve himself. And reverencing the custom of the house, Geraint from utter courtesy forbore. So Enid took his charger to the stall, and after went her way across the bridge and reached the town, and while the prince and earl yet spoke together, came again with one, a youth, that following with a costrel bore the means of goodly welcome, flesh and wine. And Enid brought sweet cakes to make them cheer, and in her veil enfolded manchet bread, and then, because their hall must also serve for kitchen, boiled the fresh and spread the board, and stood behind and waited on the three. And seeing her so sweet and serviceable, Geraint had longing in him evermore to stoop and kiss the tender little thumb that crossed the trencher as she laid it down. But after all had eaten, then Geraint, for now the wine made summer in his veins, let his eye rove in following or rest on Enid at her lonely handmaid work, now here, now there, about the dusky hall. Then suddenly addressed the hoary earl. Fair host and earl, I pray your courtesy. This sparrow-hawk, what is he? Tell me of him. His name? But no good faith I will not have it, for if he be the knight whom late I saw ride into that new fortress by your town, white from the mason's hand, then have I sworn from his own lips to have it. I am Geraint of Devon. For this morning, when the queen sent her own maiden to demand the name, his dwarf, a vicious, undershapen thing, struck at her with his whip, and she returned indignant to the queen. And then I swore that I would track this caitiff to his hold and fight and break his pride and have it of him. And all unarmed I rode, and thought to find arms in your town, where all the men are mad. They take the rustic murmur of their burg for the great wave that echoes round the world. They would not hear me speak, but if ye know where I can light on arms, or if yourself should have them, tell me, seeing I have sworn that I will break his pride and learn his name, avenging this great insult done the queen. Then cried Earl Enid, art thou he indeed, Geraint? A name far sounded among men for noble deeds, and truly I, when first I saw you moving by me on the bridge, felt ye were somewhat, yea, and by your state and presence might have guessed you one of those that eat in Arthur's hall in Camelot. Nor speak I now from foolish flattery, for this dear child hath often heard me praise your feats of arms, and often when I paused hath asked again, and ever loved to hear. So grateful is the noise of noble deeds to noble hearts who see but acts of wrong. Oh, never yet had woman such a pair of suitors as this maiden, first Limors, a creature wholly given to brawls and wine, drunk even when he wooed. And be he dead I know not, but he passed to the wild land. The second was your foe, the sparrow-hawk, my curse, my nephew. I will not let his name slip from my lips if I can help it. He, when that I knew him fierce and turbulent, refused her to him, and then his pride awoke. And since the proud man oftener is the mean, he sowed a slander in the common ear, affirming that his father left him gold and in my charge, which was not rendered to him. Bribed with large promises the men who served about my person, the more easily because my means were somewhat broken into through open doors and hospitality. Raised my own town against me in the night before my Enid's birthday. Sacked my house. For mine own earldom foully ousted me, built that new fort to overawe my friends, for truly there are those who love me yet, and keeps me in this ruinous castle here, where doubtless he would put me soon to death, but that his pride too much despises me, and I myself sometimes despise myself. For I have let men be, and have their way, and much too gentle have not used my power. Nor know I whether I be very base or very manful, whether very wise or very foolish. Only this I know, that whatsoever evil happen to me, I seem to suffer nothing heart, or limb, but can endure it all most patiently. Well said, true heart, replied Geraint, but arms, that if the sparrow-hawk this nephew fight in next day's tourney, I may break his pride. And Enid answered, Arms indeed, but old and rusty Prince Geraint are mine. Therefore, at thy asking, thine. But in this tournament can no man tilt except the lady he loves best be there. 2 forks are fixed into the meadow ground, and over these is placed a silver wand, and over that a golden sparrow-hawk, the prize of beauty for the fairest there. And this, what knight soe'er be in the field lays claim to for the lady at his side, and tilts with my good nephew thereupon, who being apt at arms and big of bone has ever won it for the lady with him, and toppling over all antagonism has earned himself the name of Sparrow-hawk. But thou that hast no lady canst not fight,